Hey guys, I'm just going to show you a video on the cold dough process. I'm going to be using a meringue divider with the Escher mixer to mix the dough. Here I've got 4 kilos of white flour and 1 kilo of wholemeal. You don't need the wholemeal. I just like to add a bit of color to the dough and it changes the flavor a little bit. And we're starting with 4 liters of water. My water is currently at 52 degrees. That's just because it's really cold in here. My flour is only at 18 degrees. I really want that dough to be warm while I'm doing an autolyse, just so I can get a bit more activity. And when I mix my yeast in later, it's still gonna have some of that warmth left over. So I have the flour and water in the bowl. For the autolyse, I just need to mix until everything comes together. So I'm gonna go for 3 minutes in reverse. That should be enough. You just want all that flour to be coming off the bottom of the bowl. The reason we do an autolyse, it just gives you a nicer crumb and we'll develop the dough slowly without needing to mix. So you'll see the results by the end. This is the dough after the autolyse. So now I'm just going to let that rest for 1 hour and then we'll finish the mixing. Dough finished at 29 degrees. While my first dough is resting, doing the autolyse, I'm just going to mix another dough that'll be more of an instant version of the same method. This time I'm going for 100% wholemeal flour. So I've got 5 kilos of wholemeal flour, 1% dry yeast, 50 grams of yeast, and 2% salt, 100 grams of salt, with 70% water, 3.5 liters, and 2% oil, 100 mils of oil. Put all the ingredients in your mixer. I'm going to start with 3 minutes in reverse and roughly 4 or 5 minutes in second speed. I want my final dough temperature to be 25 degrees. It's very important because we need this dough to prove for about half an hour before we go into the fridge. This dough was mixing 3 minutes in slow, 4 minutes in fast. As I'm stretching it, I can feel it's got a little bit of pullback. So I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds or so in second speed just to relax the dough a little more. Now that it's had that extra time, it's coming together nicely. You can stretch it out quite easily. So now I'm just going to rest this in tubs in 3 kilo portions. Let it sit out for half an hour and then chuck it in the fridge. And I'll be ready to divide and bake tomorrow. Now that's been autolysing for an hour, you can see it's really developing nicely. I haven't done any extra mixing or folding, just left it to sit. I've got some yeast that I activated in hot water. That's just to help it move along a little bit. I'm putting 0.4% dry yeast and an additional 2% water. And now I'm just going to mix that for 9 minutes on slow and 1 minute on fast and see how we're going. So while that baguette dough is mixing, I've weighed up my salt. 100 grams of salt, or 2%. I'm going to add that into the mix roughly halfway through the first 8 minutes, or just when all that yeast has been incorporated through the dough's starting to become smooth, then I can add the salt in. For the last block of the wholemeal dough, I've decided to add some parmesan. I just crumbed up 300 grams of parmesan, mix it on the top, and some cracked pepper. I'm just going to fold that into the dough. Simply just grabbing the top end and bottom end. Folding it one more time. Now that's going to rest for half an hour. After half an hour, I'll give it another fold, along with the other 2 blocks of 3 kilo. So the baguette dough has been mixing for 4 minutes. Starting to come together nicely. All the yeast is incorporated. There's nothing left in the bottom of the bowl. So I'm going to add my salt. And just finish off the mix. So that had 9 minutes in first and 1 minute in second speed. And you just get this beautiful glossy dough. Easy to stretch. That's going to give us a nice open crumb after we give it a fold. So I'll put that in the tubs at 3 kilos each. I'm also going to do an olive and rosemary. So to the baguette dough, I've added 900 grams of olives to 3 kilos of dough and 100 grams of wholemeal flour just to help soak up some of the water from the olives. The olives were rinsed straight from the jar. Now I'm just going to fold it in. Just grabbing from the tops and bottoms, folding it left and right. Now let that rest for an hour to an hour and a half and give it one more fold. I also have this beautiful rosemary from a colleague of mine that he grows in his garden. So I'm going to add that to the olive dough. I'll just put one whole stem in. Should be more than enough. So this is the wholemeal dough, and the more instant version, it actually took 45 minutes of resting instead of half an hour just because it was very cold. It was proving at about 25 degrees. So I'm just going to give it a fold by simply folding this end to here, this one to there, and then flip the dough over. So that's with both ends folded over. Now just give it a flip. And now that can sit in the fridge at around 2 degrees overnight, ready to bake straight from the fridge. Also have the Parmesan dough from earlier. I'm just going to do the same thing. Flip it over. So this is the baguette dough. It's been sitting out for about an hour and 15 minutes. You can see it's bubbling up nicely. That's more than enough. So what I need to do, I need to give it a really big stretch. Fold it over. And I want to do the same with the other side. You don't want to overlay it too much because then you're going to create a lot of strain. And then now I'll just flip it. Make it even. And when that relaxes, it's going to spread out to the edge of the tubs. I'll leave this in the fridge overnight and I can leave it up to 3 days. And this is the olive baguette, exactly the same thing again. Easy. So all the dough now is in our salva rotata. Make sure you check in tomorrow so you can see the results. So these are the doughs after they've been resting overnight in the fridge. This is the wholemeal. The wholemeal with Parmesan and cracked pepper. The white baguette with 20% wholemeal flour. And the olive and rosemary baguette. So I'm going to start with the white baguette. I'm just going to give it a dust with flour first. If you put a lot of flour on the edge, you take a scraper and just run that under the sides of the dough. That's just to help it lift up evenly. So now I'm going to flip the dough into the divider over here. So in this divider, it's got grooves for the baguette to sit, and then a V cutter. This is to pinch the baguette closed instead of cutting it so you don't have any open seams. Just give it a light stretch out. You want to keep as much of that gas in as you can. Now we just drop the divider, give another dust with flour. The first press is to even the dough. So now it's even, but because I had the setting on low, the dough is still nice and gassy. After you divide the baguette, you can put it straight onto wooden boards or trays. I use this black Teflon sheet so I can slide off the wooden board and go straight into the oven. So now I'm just going to divide the baguettes. And these can go straight into the oven. With the instant wholemeal, you don't need to flour it. You can just take straight off the tub and then flip into the machine. So I'm going to flatten it again. It's going to help it come out to the edges. And now divide the baguette. So now I'm going to swap the machine for my parmesan and cracked pepper. I'm going to use some square cuts. I can just flip this molding plate. And change the color. That's it. And now to divide. There's a piece of felt at the bottom, and that's so the blades have something to cut into, and it can finish cutting the dough the whole way. For the olive and rosemary, I'm just going to change the grid again. I'm going to go for a bigger size roll. So here we have the baguette dough, the wholemeal dough, our parmesan and cracked pepper, and the olive dough. It's the wholemeal dough and the baguette dough. Olive, back to the olive. And our parmesan and cracked pepper. So here we have the parmesan, the olive, the white baguette, and the instant wholemeal. So I've left the retarder on at 3 degrees because I have one more tub left of the baguette dough, and I'm going to bake that tomorrow to show you the results. So this is the baguette dough, 80% white flour, 20% wholemeal. It's been in the fridge for 2 days. I used some of it yesterday, and I'm going to use some again today, and I'll show you guys the results. So this is it, guys, the last of the baguettes. These ones had 2 days in the fridge. Still came up beautifully. I did a few different styles of cuts. If you have any questions on the cold dough process, please DM us, or you can go to vanroymachinery.com.au, send an inquiry, and we'll be happy to help. Thanks for watching.